Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the World Forum for Asia, I very much appreciate your attendance at the press conference today. Thank you for joining us in our poverty reduction efforts. Ending poverty in all its forms everywhere is the number one goal of the SDGs, or the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. When we first set up the SDGs back in 2015, I was invited as one of the initiators to give some comments on this particular goal. I mentioned 4 things. First, everyone has to work together to end poverty. Second, we should learn from the Ebola crisis on how we can mobilize our efforts. Third, the world has made a lot of progress, but we still have work left to do. And finally, talk is cheap. We need concrete actions. 5 years have since passed, but these 4 issues are still relevant in the year 2020. The Sustainable Development Goals Report 2020, issued by the United Nations lately, suggested that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the global poverty rate is expected to increase for the first time since records began, with 71 million people to fall into extreme poverty again. As such, we are not only facing a public health emergency more critical than the Ebola crisis in 2015, but also a very demanding poverty scenario that deserves even more joint efforts. Despite the gloomy outlook, Asia has achieved promising results even amid the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, Asian countries are the world's leading contributors to the cause of poverty reduction. In 1990, more than half of the world's extremely poor lived in Asia, but this figure dropped to only 6.4% in 2015. By 2019, more than half of the Asian countries achieved, on average, a poverty reduction rate of over 1% per year since records began. China, in particular, is about to eradicate extreme poverty by the end of this year, making itself the first developing country that reaches the no poverty goal of the SDGs. Such a remarkable achievement is a miracle in human history. It means that 1/5 of the world's population will now be secured with the food and necessities and have access to basic welfares. Obviously, we should not neglect the role of government when discussing the supply of public goods. China set a good example of how a committed and persistent government can transform economic development into an increased quality of human life. The success of China, among other Asian countries, is not only a proof of feasibility, but also valuable lessons that will empower other developing countries on their way towards sustainable development. Since the world's most populous country can say goodbye to poverty, other developing countries should have the confidence to reach the SDGs as well. At the moment, developing countries may evaluate the COVID-19 impact on most vulnerable regions, groups, and individuals, and take timely and concerted actions to contain the negative consequences of the Great Lockdown. on poverty reduction, about which China and Asian countries again provided good references and practical guides. With this said, I sincerely wish that you find the Asia Poverty Reduction Report 2020 a valuable instrument in inspiring discussions on these contemporary topics. With collective wisdom from 47 Asian countries, it aims to introduce the best practices in the region and promote the exchange of knowledge in relevant fields. Before I conclude, I'd like to congratulate China as well as other Asian countries for their achievements in poverty reduction. I would also like to emphasize again that no one country can achieve SDGs alone, no matter what resources it has, and hope this report can be a good start for post-pandemic international cooperation on poverty reduction. Thank you.